Well, greetings and hello there, everybody. It's me, your beloved Star Wars Dad, Nooch Too Good, and I am here to present to you the 30 characters and ships that you do not need in Star Wars Galaxy Heroes. We're going to have some parameters here, but before we get into those parameters, I wanted to revisit the last time we did this, which was actually about a year and a half ago. It doesn't seem like a year and a half ago, but it was a year and a half ago when we started. We made this video back in the day, but I didn't have a beard and we had the desk and everything. I was lambasted for this. This was one of the very first giant controversies I had here was saying you didn't need Mace Windu. And my intent at the time was new accounts didn't need him. You'd be okay without like relicking Mace Windu. But, you know, he does have a lot of use in the game, and then you need him for Jedi Master Kenobi, and then the endurance. So, I don't know. I was wrong on that. I can take the L from a year and a half ago, and now that we're deep into it. But let's talk about now, here in August 2025, 30 characters and ships you don't need in Star Wars Galaxy Heroes. We're going to talk them. We're going to do this in squads and talk about each one of them as we go. The Imperial Probe Droid does not fit into any farms, and all these characters, by the way, prerequisite for every character you don't need is that they are not a requirement for some other characters. So like a character like Farm Boy Luke or Lando Calrissian, who are not really needed in battles for any reason, they don't make the list because Farm Boy Luke is needed for Commander Luke Skywalker, and Lando Calrissian is required for Jedi Knight Luke, which means he's required for Jabba, and I mean all sorts of others. And Leia, Lando's required, even though you don't use them in any battles. So these characters are all not going to be required for any other farms, and they also have no other use or no other teams that they're required to be in the game. Let's jump in and make sure, by the way, comment as we go. Tell me about where I'm wrong. Tell me about why you need. Can we focus on this word? Need. This is probably a bad motion that we're doing on the channel. Characters you don't need in Star Wars Galaxy Heroes. Imperial Probe Droid. Not required for any farms. There are times when the old self-destruct can come in handy and work on a team. I think that with an Afra team, Imperial Probe Droid has some uses. I've heard Probe Droid also every now and then gets a nice little datacron, but you don't need Probe Droid for anything else in the game. It comes in the Hoth bundle, or is it called the Hoth bundle? I think it's called the Hoth bundle. You get Wampa, Probe Droid, Captain Han Solo, Rebel Officer Leia Organa. Those guys are all needed. You don't need Probe Droid for anything in the game. Young Han Solo. I know that our pal Glermit would be upset about this because he loves young Han Solo. And yes, young Han Solo can be farmed very easily. And early on, you can use him to get to advance in Smuggler's Run and an early roster. It actually comes in pretty handy there. Other than that, there's really no need. You can get other smugglers on your roster as well. Again, he's an easy farm. But do you really want to invest in upgrading young Han Solo on your roster and then not use him ever again? Probably not. You don't need him anywhere. Ugnaught, I think it goes without saying. You know, I'm even trying to imagine, you know, the thing about all these characters you don't need is that this list dwindles a little bit more constantly. I mean, all the time. They take an old character, put them into a galactic legend, like Ezra. Phoenix Ezra might have made this list like a week ago. Not a week ago, a month ago. You don't really need Ezra for anything, and I don't mean Ezra Exile, I mean the original Ezra. He doesn't really need, you don't need him on a Phoenix team, he's not required for any other farms, but now all of a sudden he's required for Galactic Legend Hondo Ohnaka, so now you need Ezra. So over time, I mean, these characters will find their way. I mean, I can totally see young Han Solo being required for some kind of solo requirement for Dryden Voss or for Woody Harrelson. Tobias Beckett, haha, I got it that time. I could totally see where we get, like, when did the Soul come out? There's like a 10th or 15th anniversary. I would love to have Dryden Voss and Tobias Beckett come to the game. Let's bring him in here. Let's have a little legendary search for him and make young Han Solo great again. Imperial Probe Droid, I was actually kind of shocked wasn't a part of the Leia Organa farm. Ugnaught, I don't see it. I don't see it. I just do not see Ugnaught being required as a farm for anything. I mean, maybe if there's some big droid galactic legend or we get an Empire Strikes Back. I don't know, man. I'm not seeing it. Ewok Scout, likewise. It's hard for me to envision a world where Ewok Scout is going to be required for anything in this game. other than like tearing you up in the Forest Moon Assault battle if you don't do it right. But Ewok Scout, completely unneeded. Doesn't even fit into any Ewok teams. And likewise, Tebow fits this bill as well. And I'll say it again. I mention this every time I bring up Tebow. I like to talk about the fact that when the Rancor raid first came around, Tebow was the meta in that raid. And that lasted like a year until CLS came out. And even then, people were still using Tebow lead. CLS, I mean, maybe CLS lead, I don't know. But Tebow lasted quite some time in Star Wars Galaxy Heroes as a useful character in the early Rancor raid. Now, you got nothing. Doesn't even really help you to unlock C-3PO. And coming up with our next little group here, leading the way, is IG-86. You got to remember, you can't just click on them when they're in a team. Not a team. What do we call these? We call these squads. Yeah, when they're in a squad, you got to hold down the clicker to open up an IG-86. There was a time early on when there was a very short-lived droid meta with HK at the lead. IG-86 was in there. Probe Droid was probably in there very early on in the game. Probably R2. That faded fast, and IG-86 has never found his way back to prominence. Just means nothing in the game. Clone Wars Chewie, you don't even need him as a starting character anymore. He was a starting character for the first, I don't know, was it 5 or 6 years of the game, and then they replaced it with Anakin and Ahsoka. Clone Wars Chewie just sits on the pile of history. Now, I know some of you guys put Wookiee teams together, but that's very, I don't know, that's very, what's the right word? Gimmicky, I don't know. Yeah, it's just, you don't see these Wookiee teams. Clone Wars Chewie just is, his kit's not very good, not required for anything. I can see Chewie, I don't know about it. IG-86 is maybe like Ugnaught. Maybe you get IG-86 and Ugnaught both required for some kind of droid Galactic Legend. I don't know. I can't think of that droid Galactic Legend would be unless they come up with some new movie about an awesome droid, which, hey, wouldn't that be cool? Ooh, like a General Grievous prequel. How about that movie? Lucasfilm. Clone Wars 2, he doesn't really need him. Bodhi Rook. I would get some arguments from my buddy Dan Guy Deals here, but Bodhi Rook is just kind of the lost member of the Rogue One franchise. He doesn't fit into the Raddus team. He doesn't even fit onto any ships. He is the pilot without a ship. That's exactly what it is. The pilot without a ship. Bodhi Rook, no use in the game. Don't really need him for anything. Hoth Rebel Soldier. I realize, and there's gonna be small objections here. There is a node in the Hoth territory battle where you need like a 5-star Hoth Rebel Soldier. I don't know. Honestly, if you're in a decent guild, they're gonna grow out of Hoth pretty quickly anyway, although it's light side, so maybe not. You don't grow out of that Hoth light side for a while, but I don't know. I think your guild can get by without having a lot of Hoth Rebel soldiers. There's one node you can just skip and still do pretty fine in Hoth territory battles without your Hoth Rebel soldier. And you think of Hoth Rebel Scout here, but Hoth Rebel Scout's basic actually has a 25% chance to grant turn meter to the team. And when you put him on those early Mon Mothma, you got a Mon Mothma team without Luthen in there. He actually is a really important member of that team with them all countering and assisting all the time. He's giving the team turn meter all the time. So, but Hoth Rebel Soldier, down. Magma Trooper is one I struggle with a little bit. Every now and then, is it this one? Yeah, every now and then, somebody comes up with a counter with Magma Trooper that makes a lot of sense, or there's a Datacron that gives Magma Trooper some value, but that's every now and then, and it seems to come and go really quick every time it happens, and mostly it's relying on this, dealing physical damage, removing turn meter, and maybe another 30% turn meter, but the rest of this stuff in the kit gains turn meter. Now this turn meter gain actually comes in there too, where Magma Trooper just keeps taking turn after turn after turn, so but Magma Trooper really does not have a place in the game in August of 2025. Now, I keep mentioning August of 2025 for a reason to kind of give us a time frame. Whoa, my shirt is see-through. Hold on. You can no longer see through my shirt now. We'll talk about the Jawas. Well, I didn't expect that to happen. I gotta pull a little Calvin move here, zip it all the way to the top, baby. So we got the comfortable sweatshirt on, zip to the top. I guess I was already see-through a bunch. Let's put it back in there. See-through, baby. The Jawas. Every Jawa aside from Jawa is not needed in Star Wars Galaxy. I gotta do it again. darn it. Let me get these Jawas up here. Every Jawa, except for Jawa, is not needed. You need Jawa for Jabba the Hutt. The other ones, not required for anything else yet. Now, I can definitely see down the road, if we get a Mandalorian Galactic Legend at some point, they're throwing these other 4. You can sit on it, you can rest on it. The other 4 Jawas are going to be needed. And then every now and then, there's a Datacron or some team that Sony puts together that lands all the thermals. And if you can find the right team, at the beginning when Galactic Legend Rey came out, they were putting her in leading a team of Jawa, and holy crap, all the thermals were completely destroying enemies. And it was a great defensive team, but it just faded over time as we got some other characters put in there with Galactic Legend Rey. And but Jawas, they don't really have a place. You don't need them. You might find some fun. They are a really, really fun team if you can find the right situation. They just don't fit into too many right situations. And now what I'm going to get in trouble with, Visa Smart. You don't need her. I don't care. I don't care what your Star Killer team looks like. I really don't. You don't need her. You start off with Star Killer on a Palpatine team with Palpatine, Mara Jade, and Star Killer in 3s. And then in 5s, you add a Jedi like Old Ben or, what's her name, Juhani. And then you need a light side unaligned Force user where people put Visa Smart. Great. You can look at the numbers, the performance with Visa Smart versus like Scavenger Rey or Jedi Training Rey. And Jedi Training Rey actually is really important for some anti-counters in territory wars. You don't need Visa Smart. You can find another, you can put Ahsoka Fulcrum in there. You can find another light side unaligned Force user that'll work just fine in your Star Killer team without having Visa Smart. Secondly, as you get farther and farther in the game, Star Killer ends up going a lot of times with the Ufus, with your Seer Junda team, instead of with Palpatine and with this team. So now you can put, I guess you can put Visa Smart on that team too, but again, that was not a really good argument, was it? That was a bad argument. You don't need her. You can find other unaligned Force users to use with your Star Killer, and Star Killer is the only place she fits. She fits nowhere else in the game other than on a Star Killer team, and there's just a lot of options there that you don't need to throw Visa Smart in. Let's talk about the Night Sisters a little bit. There are 13 Night Sisters exactly in the game, right here, 13 of them. And these 3 do not generally find their way onto a team. Once again, Night Sister Acolyte tends to get Datacrons, like really good Datacrons. It just seems to keep coming up over and over again. So you slide her into a team. However, you can deal without her. And even me, I've got a Night Sister Initiate Datacron. I'm putting it on them and I'm not even using her. Granted, there are some great Mothers teams that will get use of Italia Night Sister Acolyte. But those teams ideally would have your Death Trooper Peridia and your Night Trooper on there instead. Although I realize you can kind of peel those guys off into their own team with Captain Enoch sometimes. So I get it. If you peel off Night Trooper and Death Trooper Peridia into a Captain Enoch team, then you can use a couple of these. But generally speaking, Night Sister Initiate, Talia with her giant head. I'm sorry, excuse me, with her tiny head. Look at that tiny little head. It looks better over here, but when you swing it around, she's got a tiny little head. Maybe it's the neck thing that's doing it to her. I don't know. These 3 Night Sisters just don't really find much use in the game, and they're not required for any farms. So I'm putting these 3 Night Sisters in the list. Are you ready? Are you ready, everybody? Are you ready? All 5 of these guys are required. I know they're required for the Order 66 raid. I know they are. But by the time you fill out your teams, if you have a complete roster, I'm gonna bet you're probably not using these guys, or you're plugging them in as just some extras. And outside of the Order 66 raid, these are garbage characters in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. Now, you could use Kit Fisto and Eth Koth in the Naboo raid as well, so they were there for a while too. I don't think the rest of these other 3 were. This, outside of Order 66, and maybe you're using them in there to get yourself some points or whatever. Luminar Unduli is kind of in the same boat here as well. These characters, and she finds some spots to slide into as a healer, but not really. She's not a very good character. These 5 Jedi plus Luminar Unduli, really outside of the Order 66. They got no home in the game. They are not required for any other farms. None of them. Right? None of them. The only reason I got Kit Fisto and Ethkoth Relic is because I bought that Qui-Gon's Friends bundle back in the day for the Naboo raid. And yeah, so some of you are a lot of you probably using them for Order 66 just to run an extra, you know, an extra tier of that raid, or extra, what am I looking for? An extra run of that raid. But these, they're truly garbage characters outside of the Order 66 raid. And for those with full rosters, there's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. There's 30 other characters, and you do it 5 times. These guys are just an afterthought, and once we get all our pirates in the roster, just forget about it. These guys are not making their way to that, even into that raid anymore. They're not needed. And let's wrap this up with a fleet and some ships. The home one just doesn't do it for anybody anymore. There's just hardly any reason, maybe early game, to have the home one out here on the roster. I can't remember. I don't think it's even officially a requirement for the profundity, although it may be used in the event. I don't know. I think you can use any. I gotta go take a look. I'm calling it home one, not needed in Star Wars Galaxy Heroes, but you're gonna get it. The Raven's Claw. You don't need the ship. I mean, it's not required for any farms. I know that Gerbil for a while was using it, like he made an early home one fleet and was using the Raven's Claw, but once you get the profundity, this is just, there's no use for it. And outside of Gerbil, I've never heard of anybody really getting any use out of this ship. Kyle Katarr's useful to get Star Killer, and you put him on your Mon Mothma team, but his ship just doesn't have a home at the moment. TIE Reaper, I think I'm gonna take a little bit of a beating on these Empire ships, but TIE Reaper, come on, man. It just really doesn't fit anywhere. It does have the ability where it removes buffs. One of these where it removes buffs. Which one is it? I should have looked ahead of time and I didn't. Was it here? Yeah, this the last one I look at. Dispel all buffs. So it's got some use there. And I know there are some niche fleets. Niche was the word I was looking for earlier. Niche fleets out there that it might work for, but just generally, TIE Reaper is not a ship that anybody really needs on their roster these days. Emperor's Shuttle. For a while, this was kind of a nice little component of an Empire fleet with the Chimera, but the Chimera's kind of fallen out of favor these days in favor of the Executrix when you look at countering an Executor with the Scythe and everything. And by the time you finish that Scythe, if you're countering Executor or you're using Executrix or even Chimera to counter anything, you get your battle done, and by the time you're done, you don't even call the shuttle out to do anything. And it's not required for Leviathan, even though it's a Sith ship. It's a ship without a home these days in Star Wars Galaxy Heroes. Jedi Counselor Starfighter, 2 thumbs down. It might have some usages early with its reinforcement for everybody's brave recovering protection, but then Plo Koon, this is like a poor man's Plo Koon. That's all it is. It's a poor man's Plo Koon. It doesn't really, the ship just doesn't come into play at any point. And I'm going to bet there's some of you guys out there that are finding, again, niche uses for some of these ships. Congratulations, continue. Please don't tell anybody that they need to have this ship. Please, God. TIE Echelon. There was a time. Ah, yes. I remember the good old days when a First Order Finalizer fleet would counter the Executor. Before the dark days. Before the Punishing One. Once the Punishing One came out, the First Order fleet went to the scrapyard. It's gone. Will it return someday? Yeah, that's entirely possible. Maybe they bring out a ship and it makes it usable again, but right now, Punishing One is like the ship in the game that changed everything. It eliminated this counter. Punishing One like wrecked the game. And you want to know why? You want to know why they haven't released a ship since Punishing One? Because every time they release a ship, it wrecks the game. It wrecks the game. Every time they do it, if they put a capital ship out sometime soon, it's going to destroy the game for you. So there you go. TIE Echelon fits in that First Order fleet. And yes, the Finalizer is required for Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, but you don't have to have TIE Echelon to get the Finalizer active. So it just goes right here along with First Order Special Forces TIE Fighter. These are both really important ships for that Executor counter back in the day. Both of them now, scrap heap. Scrap heap on Jakku. Gauntlet Starfighter. I struggle with this one a little bit. It's got a great reinforcement ability where it comes out. It's the Empire version of Plo Koon. All allies recover 30% protection, and Empire allies gain 30% max protection. But But generally speaking, again, when you use that Chimera counter with the Scythe or the Executrix counter with the Scythe, the battle doesn't last long enough to get Gauntlet out there. I can be convinced on this one. I might have it in here in error, and if so, I will bear the brunt of my mistakes and choices there, much like Mace Windu last time around. And there you go. That's 30, I think, +1 characters and ships and fleets and everything else that are not needed in Star Wars Galaxy Heroes. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot one guy. Get your torches and pitchforks out. Have a nice day. I'll talk to you soon. Also remember, Nooch too good.